Go start, and then we're gonna get started.
Indeed.
Uh, I
That's-
can't. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm gonna wind up getting recorded.
Okay, well, thank you guys all for joining. This is our second class in the Bryn Gwlad Newcomers Academy series for the 2020 year. Just to give you guys a little bit of background of our Bryn Gwlad Newcomers Academy. Was launched last year. This reiteration, there have been previous and other baronies also have similar activities, but due to the current plague that's going on worldwide, we are doing this via online this year. We keep hoping that eventually we'll be able to go back to meeting these in person, but in the meantime, I'm glad that we can still do this. So for those of you who do not know me, my name is Catherine de Kropser. I am the, chairperson, you could say, of the Newcomers Committee, which oversees the Bryn Gwlad Newcomers Academy. So we do have a couple of our committee members on, and I would love to point them out. So we have Genevieve of Hell's Gate, if you see her. And then we have Orazio de Sisi. He is the hospitaller for Bryn Gwlad. I know that Twahal poked his head in earlier with Orazio. He and his lovely fiancée Nadia will not be able to join us this evening, but we wish them all amazingness, and I believe that covers it for the committee. So,
you said other fiancés does he have?
No, his awesome fiance. I'm sure there was a word slip in there.
Okay.
So, just a couple housekeeping things. Again, we are recording this session, so just be aware of that. And the class will run till about 8:30 or 9, depending on how things go. We do have additional classes coming up. There's 6 total in our series. This is number 2. The next one is going to be on June 15th about arts and sciences. If you aren't already, and sorry, I'm letting people into the room. If you aren't already on the Newcomers Academy webpage or Facebook group, that's where we post everything. And it's a good way to keep in contact and also make contact. So if you want to reach out to any of us directly, we're all there and watch and are on that page. Other than that, I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our 2 amazing teachers tonight. I am very, very excited that they are with us because they are fabulous, longtime SCA legends.
Legends, huh? Cool.
Well, I have to laugh because I have only been in the SCA for about 5 years now, and I'd heard of you. So, but I might have also had a little bit of an edge with Robert, who is special. So, maybe you're legend for him. Anyways, without further ado, I am going to pass over to our teachers. We're going to have Sir Pendaran and Mistress Jehann, and I'm going to let them give you the introductions of whatever information you want to give them.
Well, hi, folks. First of all, welcome to everybody who could join, especially, but not only, but especially to all the new folks. The new people are the lifeblood of the SCA. Without new folks getting interested in joining, then we wouldn't have a game that continues on and progresses into the future. So thanks everybody for taking some time out to join us tonight, and thank you for your interest. So as Catherine said, I am Sir Pendaran Glamorgan, and I have been in the SCA for more years than I would care to count. I first started up in the Barony of the Steppes, which is Dallas, in 1986. And in 1988, I moved down here to Bryn Gwlad. I'm my wife, Jehann, who will introduce herself in just a minute, and I are former Baron and Baroness of Bryn Gwlad. And This is something that we've been doing quite a long time. We did step away for a while to raise our son. We intended to step away for a few years, and then 15 years later realized it was more than we probably anticipated. But we're back, and we've been diving back into things and having a great time, and it's kind of fun. Sort of kind of being newcomers, but not really being newcomers. It's been interesting so far. So Jehann, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and then we'll dive into the classes.
Hi everyone, I'm Jehann. I'm going to talk to you guys in a little bit about costuming, and yeah, we've been around for a while, but we're coming back in, so we kind of feel like newcomers too. So we were really tickled about getting to help newcomers figure this whole thing out, because we're kind of coming back as well. So it's neat to be coming back into something that you've seen before. Susan and I can totally relate. But it's new and it's different. And the last thing I'll say before I turn this back over to Pendaran is you could be in a better place. Anything you want to do is happening here. So you're going to love it here.
So I am going to be teaching basics of persona creation. And before I do that, I guess the first thing I should do is figure out a little bit about who I'm teaching. So if you're just really brand new to the SCA, raise your hand or something so I can see who else. So I can see Mark, Rob, Susan. I know you're not really brand new, but it's been a while. I believe Lori also is. So you may be wondering when I say I'm going to teach persona creation, what do I mean by persona? What is a persona? I'm just going to go ahead and assume that there's going to be a lot of terminology that we use in the SCA. It's like starting a new career or something. Sometimes there's a lot of terms that people aren't familiar with. So when we say persona, the closest thing I can kind of liken it to probably is if you've ever played D&D or something like that, you create a character, right? Well, in the SCA, your persona is your character. The difference between D&D is your persona is someone who could have lived in the time period that is represented in the SCA, which is basically from 1600 back. So when we say persona, we're basically talking about your character. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. And first of all, I'm going to make sure my presentation is up. All right. Okay, minimize that. Can you all see my screen?
I can see it.
Okay, there we go. All right, so beginning persona, who will you be in the SCA? And I'm going to just go ahead and thank my lovely wife, Jehann, for all of the images in this, because while we're both creative and artistic in our own ways, she's a visual artist. So she gets to take credit. I want to credit her for the pictures of all the lovely people that she added here. So the basics of persona, really, when you boil it down to its absolute most basics, it's who, where, and when. You know, who are you? What's your name? Where are you from? And when are you from? Which is kind of a different concept there. The who and the where we're really familiar with. You know, we don't often think of ourselves probably as, you know, when we're existing in a time period, but in the SCA, that's pretty much part of a big part of the game. So we're just going to kind of step through some of the manners, the ways, the methods that you can choose these three basics: the who, the where, and the when. And by the way, if I'm going too fast or if people have questions or whatever, feel free to go ahead and jump in. I don't mind. Also, Jehann, if you would let me know if somebody asks a question in the chat window.
Okay, I'd be happy to. Horacio's doing a dynamite job of catching those questions, though. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Or Horatio, if you can do it, whomever. So first, how to pick the who. So most people are going to have a first and a last name. or if you're Italian or Spanish, maybe 13 or 14 names in between. So I've kind of broken this out into both first and last name here. So we're starting with the first name. How do you pick a name? It can really be as simple as choosing, first of all, you can use your own name if you want to, as long as it is a documentable period name. Like some people aren't, don't want to get too wild and crazy with it. There's a local gentleman, a local knight named Sir John of Severn, whose name happens to be John Chotke, and he chose to stick with John, and that's perfectly fine. Sometimes you may have a family name that's common. For example, William is a very common name in my family, and I considered going with the first name William for a while. So you can use like a family name, your father's name, your grandfather's name, or whatever. A lot of times people will choose like a saint or a person from history or a character in a book to use for their names. For example, my lady wife, her middle name is Joan, and she always kind of related, or because she was named for Joan of Arc. So she always kind of admired Joan of Arc and decided that she would like to go with that name. And the medieval spelling of Joan is the medieval French. Looks like in English would be Jehann, which, so it's, what's that, sweetie? It's Jehanne, right? I want to make sure I can actually spell my own wife's name. So she chose Joan, Jehann. Also, a lot of times people can maybe reading historical fiction books or something like that and come across a name that they really like. Or even if you're reading books about a biography from history, you may come across a name that you like. That's perfectly fine. All that's great. Sometimes it can really honestly be just as simple as searching the internet. Just go to Google and type in, French names or medieval French names or Italian names or, Finnish names or whatever. Or even baby books. All those are completely legitimate ways of deciding on or picking a name. And you can also go to the SCA, the College of Heralds website, which we have the link right here, and look through kind of a glossary of names and so forth. And Herald, for those of you who are brand new, those are folks in the SCA that help with things like names and coats of arms and the design and submission of those and so forth. And one thing that you'll see in most of these slides is don't be afraid to just talk to people and ask questions. Feel free to go up to people and, let them know that you're new. Most people in the SCA tend to be very friendly. Most people, I'm not, but most people are. And they're perfectly willing to talk to you, especially, about like their names or how they chose a name or something. So if you hear somebody that, for example, does a Viking persona and that'd be cool to be a Viking, you can go talk to them about that and ask them questions. Chances are they'll be more than happy to talk to you about it. So before I go to the next slide, does anybody have any questions? Okay, I think my dog does, but he doesn't get to take part. Okay. Come on. There we go. Oops. Okay. Second part of how to pick the who, your last name. How do you choose a last name? That's often more difficult and a little more alien concept than choosing a first name. So last names in the Middle Ages, and I'm going to use the term Middle Ages as a catch-all for everything in the SCA, right? That including the Renaissance or the early Middle Ages, or what people often call the Dark Ages or whatever. So if I say the Middle Ages, just take it for the time period represented in the SCA. So throughout the time period, one's profession could often be a last name. And if you may not stop and think about how often professions have the last name as a profession, the profession as a last name rather, has carried over into the modern world. Names like carter, for example, someone who makes, builds carts, or wheeler, or smith. These are all professions that it started out probably as someone like, you know, Edward the Tanner, and later on his sons just dropped the and they became the Tanners, you know, Edward Tanner or William Tanner, whatever. So if you can choose a profession name, in fact, I know one gentleman who decided, you know, every village has to have a graveyard. There has to be a guy who digs the graves. So he chose a Germanic persona and decided to find out the German last name for a grave digger. So I wish I could remember his last name. But so yeah, you can choose any profession type name. It doesn't mean you have to do that thing. You know, if you decide to make your last name Wheeler, doesn't mean you have to learn how to make wheels. You know, it just or Chandler doesn't mean you have to make candles. You can if you want to. That'd be a cool thing to do. You can, yeah, if you want to. That's a cool thing to do, especially making candles because you got to see at night. So geographical location names, place names, the so-and-so of a place is a super common thing. Like there's a gentleman, the former Baron of Bryn named Thomas of Tenby. His persona is from the Welsh town of Tenby. And that's a very historical thing. John of Gaunt, for example, who was part of the Plantagenet dynasty. Jehann d'Avignon would be my wife's name, d'Avignon, meaning from Avignon in Burgundy or modern France. Those are all. That's a great way to choose a last name, and it's also it kind of lets people know where you're from. So it's kind of a cool thing, especially if you really identify with a place. Also, your mother or your father's name is another way. So there were a lot of cultures would you would be like the modern name Johnson is just a modernization of Johansson, which is Johann's son. That's really common in Germanic and Nordic cultures. In the Welsh culture and some of the other early Celtic cultures, they had what they called matronymic names, or the name descended from the mother instead of the father. So you know, you could find out what you know. I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but the name descended from the father also works in Norse cultures for women. So like a woman named Sigmund's daughter or Ragnar's daughter, those are really common. And in fact, also with Arabic and Middle Eastern Jewish names, David ben Reuben, for example, or Daoud ibn Auda. Yeah, that. So we have some, again, the Herald's link down here. You can go there and ask questions. And there's some other kind of helpful hints down here at the bottom. So that's kind of names at a very super high level. And one of the reasons I wanted to keep things at a very super high level is because one bit of advice I have for you is not to rush into it and pick a name and decide to stick with it immediately. I always kind of recommend choosing a name or using your mundane name, your modern name, for a little while until you really find out what you want your persona to be, where you want to be from, your time period that you want. I really recommend not rushing into something and getting stuck with it, and then later on wishing you'd gone with something a little different, more representative of where your persona wound up. Waiting and being a little more patient prevents you from being a 14th century English knight who happens to have a very Welsh name like Pendaran Glamorgan, and then having to explain why you have the equivalent name of the medieval equivalent of Jethro for a name, which would be my case. So any questions? No. Okay. I see stuff coming up in the chat window. All right.
I had one real quick, Pendaran. So if somebody uses their mundane name, how would they be referred to in the SCA while they're using their mundane name?
Well, if you just choose to decide, let's say, for example, your mundane name is Robert, and you can just call yourself Robert of Bryn Gwlad until you really pick a permanent name. So something like that.
What if we've already sort of landed on what we want?
Well, that's perfectly fine. That's absolutely fine. As long as it's not something that is kind of out of the bounds, as long as it's not like Gandalf, or something like that, which I'm actually going to get into in my warnings slide here in just a second. I mean, Gandalf is cool, but
some amalgam of your mundane versus and where you would like to be and things like that is perfectly acceptable, correct?
Well, what did you have in mind?
Well, so in my case, I went ahead and registered with Candlemas as Robert Gris de Pauillac, which is Robert the Gray of Pauillac, which is my region. So, and the hair is getting pretty gray, so I just wondered if that wasn't acceptable.
I mean, it sounds fine to me. I'm not a herald. What language is that?
French.
Ah, okay. I should be able to understand that, but
yeah, Pauillac is a region. It's the Aquitaine.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And a lot of times, if you have an idea, the heralds can help you if it's not quite on in terms of being documentable. They can help guide it in. And even if like the first herald that you're working with says this should work, there's a whole group of heralds that are super nerdy about heraldry, and they'll argue and fight over it and find resources and then finally go, well, if you make this one change, this will work. Are you good with that? And then you can decide.
Well, and that's why I was wondering, I mean, how wed to that process are we?
Well, there are a lot of people that may have the name that they choose, and then the official name may be slightly different, but the name that they choose and they like and they're comfortable with is still a period name that works. But for some reason, wouldn't pass the heralds because maybe it's too close to somebody who really lived or whatever. Also, you mentioned something that is a great aspect that I honestly didn't think to put in here, and that's description. Because Robert the Gray. That is also a very common kind of last name that people pick up. Probably more common in other cultures, some cultures than others. Again, Germanic and Norse cultures, but not solely from them. But you saw like Eric the Red, or so-and-so Sven Forkbeard, or something like that. Descriptive, the gray, the tall, things like that. Those are Louis le Gros, Louis the Large. Those are great ways to also choose a last name. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay. Quick question regarding if you want to choose a different persona, say 5 years down the road, or could you possibly have one persona for, if you're going to these sort of events and another persona for different sorts of events?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, we were kind of talking about that a little earlier. 99 times out of 100, if you see me at an SCA event, I'm Pendaran Glamorgan, and, just the, good old Pendaran over there. But occasionally, I have been known to put on Viking clothes and be Skarpaden Thorgardsson, just to do something different. Or maybe I'm going to an event that's Viking themed or something like that. If that's the case, you will not see me wear any of the awards or orders or whatever that I've earned as Pendaran. For example, I'm a knight in the SCA. Knights wear a white belt and a gold chain. When I'm being Skarpaden, you will not see me wear a white belt or a gold chain because it's a different guy.
Now, you can, as one person or one persona, wear clothes from all throughout the SCA time period too.
Sure.
You can do things. If your persona is 15th century, you can still do Viking wire weaving while you're doing that persona, or whatever it is you want to do.
Or if you just decide it's really hot in southern Monstiora in August and you don't feel like wearing a lot of wool and you instead want to be Roman for the day, or dress like a Roman for the day rather, you can do that and still be your main persona's name. I was just addressing the taking off the belt and chain is when I'm a different persona, you know, that I dress differently and don't wear all the accoutrement maybe that Pendaran might.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that raises a question about period, and I thought SCA was pretty much focused, you know, within, as you had mentioned earlier in your presentation, you know, within a framework of Middle Ages. But you just said Roman, so you mean classical Roman, or are you just talking about Roman as in Italy?
No, I mean, we cover this a little bit in a later slide, but since you brought it up, the bylaws of the SCA say it's 1600 and back. And I think when they wrote that, they weren't thinking that maybe people were going to go, you know what, I'm going to be Egyptian.
Way back.
Yeah. And technically you can do that. I actually kind of, with the exception of late Roman Empire, I tend to caution people about doing that for various reasons. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, you can actually go back that far if you so desire. It's a little problematic. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it per se, but it makes it hard to kind of relate to cultures, and the SCA is kind of built around an award structure and whatnot that's fit towards the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. Okay. So apparently I'm taking too long because my wife just gave me the look at the time signal. So who warnings, just a couple of things to watch out for. One, make sure the name you choose is historical. Two, be careful with famous names. Like you can't be Henry Plantagenet, you know, because that was the King of England. And like I said earlier, don't rush into a choice. And if you have questions, ask people, especially ask the heralds. They can help you out with that sort of thing. Look at these happy people. Look, they're having fun. Okay. How to pick a wearer. So where are you going to be from is another big important thing. And it's, again, my warning, my catch-all warning with all this is don't rush into it. Take some time, make sure you're picking something that you're going to want to stick with. But things to think about, ways that you can get started. Family origin. Like perhaps your family, you can trace your family back to Scotland, and your family's really into being Scottish, and you want to be Scottish. That's a great thing to do. Or Irish, or Portuguese, or whatever. Maybe it's a place that you visited and really loved. Like Susan really loves England. I kind of sound like she had a real love of the place there. I don't blame you. I love England too. That's the main reason I chose to base my persona in England. Or maybe it's a place you've always wanted to visit. Like you've always just thought, you know, gosh, the Italy is the end all and be all. I'd just really love to go there. That's a great way, you know, to maybe start out where you want your persona to be from. Also, you know, literally just go look up a medieval map, or a map of medieval Europe, I should say. Don't look at an actual medieval map because it looks like it's kind of they're often unreadable. They're so odd looking. But like the map up here, you can look and see there's nothing called Spain. You'll notice, for example, like throughout most of the Middle Ages, there were various kingdoms in what is now Spain, like Granada and Castile and so forth. Same thing with Germany. Most of what we think of now as Germany was the Holy Roman Empire or something like that. But you can look at it and go, okay, well, you know, my family, or maybe I want to be from somewhere in Eastern Europe. Oh, I could be from Wallachia. That sounds cool. You know, you can look at a map and kind of find places and look them up. You know, or if you're really into the show Vikings and you want to be a Viking, that's totally cool. Just don't dress like that. And Jehann will get in. Jehann will get into that when she gets to her presentation. And as I always say, don't be afraid to talk to people and ask questions. So, do you have any questions about how to pick a wearer? I'm not hearing any. Okay. So wear warnings. First of all, make sure it exists in the Middle Ages. And what I mean by that is if you decide you want to be Italian and from the 13th century, there's no place called Italy in the 13th century. It would be Venice or Rome, or maybe the Papal Lands or the Duchy of Milan or someplace like that. Same thing with Germany. So, find out where exactly you want to be. So maybe you look at it and you go, you decide, you know what, man, De Pisa sounds like a really cool last name. So I'm not gonna say I'm Riccardo of Italy, I'm Riccardo de Pisa. That would be a cool place, so make sure it's something that existed. Another one, make sure it's a real place. So, you just can't tell people you're from the Shire. They will ask you from which Shire. So, just make it a real place. And you don't have to necessarily stay away from North or South America, because there's no rule that says it can't be the New World. But again, you start getting into really problematic areas. Like the exceptions to that might be if you're a very late period English persona that's in some of the early colonies, like Jamestown or something like that. You could do that. Technically, if you want to be, a Crow or a Cherokee or something like that, you can, technically. It's kind of hard to do. It's problematic, and it's just something I generally tend to kind of warn people that it's just kind of difficult to do. I do know some gentleman in the mid-realm who, which is the Midwest of the United States, who does a South American persona, and he wears leopard skins and stuff, and he somehow makes it work, but it's problematic. I really wouldn't recommend it. Any questions?
So you said to run this by Herald internally, which is fine, and that's something I'm willing to go ahead and do in order to pursue my name. But is there going to be, are there going to be fact checkers when we're out there that they're going to question your choice or your name or whatever?
Well, I mean, if you come up to somebody and say, my name is Gandalf the Grey, people are going to probably look at you askance and assume maybe that either your persona is crazy, or that you've wandered into the wrong game. Or if you say that you're from some mystical made up place, I, Pendaran, will just automatically assume that you're either mad or a witch. So I'll either probably just really try to placate you if you're a crazy person, or maybe stone you if you're a witch. More likely, I'd probably just run away, because I don't want a witch to put a curse on me or something like that. But what people are not likely to do is just suddenly go, well, you can't call yourself that, if that's what you're worried about, right? As far as actually getting your name officially registered, yes, there will be fact checkers, but that's a very modern process that's not done in the context of an event. That's the kind of thing that, you sit down at a business meeting or a fighter practice or somebody's living room and work stuff like that out. Did that answer your question?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay.
I have just, again, talking informally with people at Candlemass, we got the bullet version of what you're presenting this evening, and their suggestion was, yeah, shouldn't be a problem, especially here in this barony, but there are times when you may go elsewhere, and you better be a little more attentive to attire and names and protocol. So I guess that's it. I'm trying to preempt any issues that I may run across over time.
So yeah, I would love to say there's no such things as any rude people or jerky people in the SCA, but the SCA is like any group. The vast majority of people are nice and polite, but occasionally you're going to have some people who may be a little bit snarky and try to tell you can't do that. Or I've seen people show up for the very first times at an event and wear something that is basically a sumptuary law. Go back to the white belt and gold chain. 99 out of 100 people will walk up and go, "Hi, are you new? The white belt thing you should stay away from, because that's reserved for knights or whatever. Or a big crown. You shouldn't wear that unless you're the king or the queen." There's always going to be that one person though that's kind of a jerk about it, and it's a shame, but it happens. So I don't think that that's something that should be a major concern. But if you're wearing, you know, pan horns and goat legs, somebody might pull you aside and wonder if maybe your persona is pretending to be something, or maybe you just kind of stepped into the wrong game. There's nothing wrong with, you know, fantasy LARP type stuff. That's just a different game. That's all. You know, it's not what the SCA is. And there are some people that go back and forth between those two things. So again, not sure if I answered your question or not, but so okay. I'm gonna move on to how to pick a win. So before I do that, this is a super high level, not at all official kind of generic breakdown when you hear people talk about early, middle, or late periods. Early generally tends to, if you hear somebody in the essay talk about, oh, so-and-so's early period, they're probably talking about roughly between like 550 to 1050, Vikings, Celts, you know, that sort of thing, Saxons. That's generally what, if you hear somebody use that term, what they're talking about. Middle period, you might hear people just talk about, you know, Middle Ages or High Middle Ages or whatnot. That's really what that kind of tends to be. The High Middle Ages, or the you know, the classic Middle Ages, from about 1050 roughly to about 1450 roughly. And then late period, people usually tend to be like 1450 to 1600, often really kind of landing solidly in that Italian or English Renaissance or French Renaissance period. So I just kind of threw that in there as a very general, no hard and fast. And as I mentioned earlier, yeah, sometimes you'll run into Romans. I heard tell once of an Egyptian persona. I don't know how that person made that work. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, like I said, kind of problematic interacting with other folks. Romans tend to work a little bit better because a lot of their kind of general culture and structure carried forward into the early Middle Ages. So how to pick a win. Sometimes people choose their personas based really on culture. Like I said earlier, like, man, you thought Vikings would really sound cool and you've always wanted to be a Viking or something like that. That's kind of an easy no-brainer. Or maybe you've always been drawn to Elizabethan costuming. You saw Shakespeare in Love and just thought the costuming was amazing and that looks like what you want to do. Or maybe you're more into fencing than you might be, you know, broadsword and shield type stuff, and you think maybe you know, Elizabethan culture, or that same time period, but you know, French or Italian or German or whatever. Sometimes you might just like the clothing and or the armor for a certain time period. That's how I wound up choosing my time period, actually. I think the armor from what's called the transitional period for armor, basically the 14th century, the middle of 1300s. I just think that looks like is the coolest armor ever. So that's where I decided to put my persona eventually. But also you may, again, look at the clothes and think, well, that looks comfortable, or that looks gorgeous, or, you know, I have the figure for that. Or sometimes it's, well, I don't have the figure for that, so I'm not going to choose that time period. That can help you with your choice. And so that might lead to the question, by the way, well, how do I know what armor and clothing look like in a certain time period? Google search or costume, books. Just flip through them and see what you think looks good. Maybe you come into the SCA with a certain type of art form that you like to do. Like you're into inkle weaving, for example. That's going to skew you more towards an earlier period persona, or like glass beads. Or maybe you're into a type of embroidery called black work, which is specifically Elizabethan. Or maybe you like to armor, you like to pound metal and shape metal and make armor. You know, that may steer you more towards the middle of the time period. There's a lot of different things, that ways that you can choose your win. So yeah, that's pretty much that. And of course, don't be afraid to talk to people and ask questions. Any questions? Okay. God, what a pompous group those guys are. So especially that one right there, he's the worst. That's me, just so y'all know. So wind warnings. As I said earlier, it's kind of sticking with the official time periods of the SCA. There are some people stay away from post 1600. There are some people who kind of push that a little bit, go about 20s, 25, whatever. You start getting into like the English Civil War around 1650, you're really pushing it. It's best to pretty much stay in that time limit. And going really ancient can be problematic. I mean, you can be Ugg the caveman in your artwork, maybe like putting a bunch of pigment in your mouth and get your hand on a cave wall, and that's your A&S entry. I wouldn't recommend that. But we have an award structure that's built around service, fighting, and arts, and it's all kind of catered or built into this kind of European Middle Age Renaissance model. So going super ancient or super post period really starts to become kind of an issue. Okay, that is it for my brilliant little presentation there. Before I hand it off, does anybody else have any other questions? If you're anything like me, you'll probably think of some later. And if so, there's lots of people you can ask, myself or anybody else who has any experience in the SCA. I just want to reiterate one last time that all that was super high level. And that just gives you a starting point. And then once you kind of decide on your who, your when, and your where, then you can really start to kind of pad out your persona and research it more, determine more details. And the more that you do that, the more you can talk about your persona, the more you learn about your period. It can really start to become fun and reach a certain comfort level with who you are, where you're from, the world around you, and really start to get into the whole role playing of your persona, which is not unlike what I mentioned earlier, kind of like in D&D, you have a character you're role playing, you become comfortable with that character. You can do the same thing in the SCA and really start to dive into that alter ego of yours and have fun with it. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up and hand it over to my lovely wife.
Hey, Pendaran, before you end, I wanted to mention one last question that we got, which was,
Yeah.
do you have to get super specific with your persona in order to play, or like, can you kind of keep it more loose as you're kind of getting started?
Oh, absolutely keep it loose, especially as you're getting started. I think that getting more and more specific comes with time and comfort and research. I mean, one of my personal heroes in the SCA was a gentleman named Ragnar Ulfgarson. And he told me he finally felt comfortable knowing who Ragnar was when he could tell somebody what Ragnar had for breakfast. But it took him a while to get there. It took him a while to get there. I've been Pendaran for more years than I care to count. So I can tell you about my horses and my manor in Gloucestershire and other things like that. I can get real specific with it. I would never expect somebody who's brand new or even been doing it for a few years to have that kind of detail around it. So yeah, stay loose and until you find something that you really, really, really like and comfortable with and want to do, and then do as much or as little as you want to. Nobody says you have to be able to tell people what you had for breakfast. That's not a requirement. I just think it's fun.
Thanks.
Yep.
So the long and the short is, in order to be card carrying, you don't have to carry your resume.
That's true. Don't have to carry your resume. I carry it all in here, but I'm just stupid geeky like that.
All righty. I'm going to push on forward with some costuming, and see if I can share screen and get mine going. All right, can everybody see that?
Looks good on my end.
All right. Hi guys, I'm Jehann. What you're looking at here is costumes I've made over the years. I've been in forever. And this is just my little street cred picture. No, you do not have to start with costuming like this. This is the result of 25 plus years costuming and theatrical costuming in Austin. So relax. But I wanted to kind of at least let you know who I am and what I look like. Here we go. Simple tunic. And I can't think of a more amazing place to start trying to come up with a persona and costume, because there are a lot of people in this barony who can not only just sew, but they can sew in amazing ways. Amazing ways. We have a very strong clothiers guild in the barony, and they are always doing things. They just had a class on basically making simple tunics like these. And just like with all of the persona and name discussion, you start simple and then you can float time periods and play with things a little bit. And that is always a lot more fun to do, because you can try some things out. A simple tunic and pants or a simple dress can float to a lot of different time periods and make things very easy for you. When you go to choose your first clothes, though, sometimes you do know exactly what you want. This is a member of our barony who back in the 80s chose a costume and has been wearing variations on the theme ever since then. He is globally recognized for his clothing. Everyone knows that's Tyvar, and I mean internationally, because of what he wears. So if you have a persona and you do fall in love with it, it is something that you can carry with you for the rest of your life. You know, and there are people in the society who've done it, and this is one that lives here in our barony. So costuming, it's so easy to watch TV and think that Viking is for me. And this is just a little bit of a difference between what you might see on TV and what they would really be wearing. And you'll hear some of the people who've been around for a long time say that the fantasy looks wrong and that the real costuming looks right. And we get very upset. And sometimes I'm not allowed to go to movies with people because I'm just sitting there making comments about some of the theatrical costuming. If you have enough to make a movie, you should have the budget to open a book. And, you know, but there's a lot of other choices going on. But this is a classic example. Many of us go to Pinterest to shop for costuming, and you're going to see me doing a lot of talking about comparisons. And what I have is left side versus right side in this. And the left side are costumes that are really, we can do better. And when I say we, I mean in this barony, we can do better. There are resources and people from every different time period imaginable in this barony who can help you decide what will make it look real and what will make it look fantasy. And there's, you know, all you have to do is ask. I will warn you, there are a lot of costuming people in the barony, and sometimes you will ask and you will get way more than you ever wanted to know. You can't put your hand up, the universal, please stop, that's too much, if we've, you know, gone over our limit. I'm going to stop here for a second on the screen and see if there's any questions. Take a look at the left side, then the right side. See if you can have your first momentary class on the difference between a costume and clothing from a period. I think you'll start to see it's recognizable.
You don't mean the left side of the page versus the right side of the page, though, right?
That is correct. Left photo versus right photo. Yeah, in pairs. I think the left side is probably trying to be that time period. That was my goal. Okay. So I'm going to hop through some pages. I brought in a page of some of the standard entry costuming that is not hard to do. It's all variations on a tunic for a guy and some sort of pant and a single layer dress, maybe with something over the top of it. This is the standard Norse type of costume. We have a lot of people in the group who do that. I will address if you don't sew. There's lots of things you can do there too. But we're just going to kind of pop through the time periods. If this ends up being a time period that you think is pretty awesome, I'm going to spread out my pictures a little bit so I can see you guys a little better. And shout out if you want me to stop and talk about a time period specifically a little more, or address a question from a different time period. Anglo-Saxons. I'm always learning about new costumes, and as I was looking to put these slides together, I found these two pictures. These are actually archaeological recreations from two burials that were found, and I'd never seen it before, so I got all excited and had to put the link in here for that, because those are actual grave finds that they've built back into costumes. Ooh, that's so exciting. Also, if you're hunting around Pinterest, looking at actual art from the time period. Norse is kind of hard, but as you get into later time periods, you start to see art that you can look at. Always a great resource. Norman, a lot of guys like the armor starting at the Norman time period, and this is a driver for a lot of guys. Norman is also fairly comfortable to wear, and again, tunics. You make it longer, you make it shorter, you change the decoration around the neck, and it totally jumps time period. So if you choose to wear a tunic with nothing on it, you can throw on some jewelry and maybe a different headpiece, and nobody knows. So for those of you who are brand new, it's great to have a plain tunic and try some of this out and pick a period and see how you like it without having to make more clothes. 14th century is where all of a sudden things start to get fitted and things start to get a little more complicated. This is a very popular time period in the SCA right now, and you'll see a lot of these clothes out and about in the society. They're comfortable, they can be bought. They're getting a little more tricky. Now that we get into started doing the later time periods, things get more complicated and things start to spread by shorter time periods and by location. Not everybody's wearing the same kind of clothes. 15th century, things are starting to look a little different depending on where you are in the world. Got some French and English over here. This is Italian over here. So things are starting to change based on where you are in the world. And they continue to get more complicated depending on where you are. The Italians' clothing really starts to take a change. This is your Italian Renaissance. Starts to be worn over here. These giant things with the headdresses that I love are called houppelans. They're super fun, but complicated to wear. Tudor, all kinds of resources for Tudor. If you are somebody who sews, this is where you can actually get some pretty amazing patterns to work with that may actually have come from a Tudor costume book. That's kind of cool. But again, this is hard to step out in as a newcomer. Elizabethan, again, I would say this is hard to do, except that there's so many people who do it. A lot of times you can borrow old clothes. So many people do Elizabethan. And again, I wanted to show you this picture over here on the left where we've got people actually recreating a picture from the time period. That's a great way to start. It kind of ensures that you don't mess anything up, that you kind of got the right idea of, you know, what it's supposed to look like. Yes, time consuming. And summer. We all battle with heat, and this barony just did an event in Roman, and it was stunning to see everyone in their Roman clothes. It was amazing how many people actually built the clothes. It's something we do to cope with the heat around here, and it's pretty common for us to do that. So even though we might have Vikings in 15th century and 14th century, sometimes an event just needs to be in cool clothes so you can enjoy yourself, because that's really what we're trying to do. When you go to pick a picture in this barony, talk to somebody, go to Clothiers Guild, talk to one of the people who are members of Clothiers Guild, talk to somebody you've already met and ask them, you know, where they got their clothes. How is it, you know, can they loan something? Lori, there's always something that can be done that'll keep it simple for you. Absolutely. Okay, do I have any costumers, newcomer costumers? Look at y'all. Okay, I'm gonna touch on a little bit of construction and fabric stuff. Please don't freak out. I'm not saying you have to sew things. Orazio, before I get into this, do you want to talk about Gold Key?
Sure, thank you. So
Please.
one, a quick shout out, because I know, you know, Jehann talked about this amazing costuming that she does, and when I first came in, I was like, me and sewing machines, not a thing. It's not going to happen. But I just finished my second doublet that I did all by myself because I wanted doublets. So it's something that you can learn, so don't be afraid. And there are sewing machines that people can let you borrow, and lots of people that want to help. So there's that. But if, say, you put this off and we're coming back and we're finally able to do events in person, you're like, oh no, there's an event next week and I have no clothes. Do I have to make a tunic in this week? No, you don't, because the barony has what's called Gold Key. And Gold Key is all of our loaner garb. In my garage, I have like 5 tubs of garb that's just set aside for people who need to borrow garb. Please ask me. I would like to see it used. So contact on the Bronia website. There's the contact an officer and reach out to the hospitaller. Or on the, if you go to the Facebook group and say, hey, I need to borrow garb, or on the Discord page, all of those, either myself or someone is going to poke me about it, or if I'm no longer the hospitaller, whoever the hospitaller is, and make sure that we get you garb. Garb should not be a reason why you can't attend an event. We got you. Thanks, John. Thank you.
Yeah, this barony is huge, and we have all the tools to let you play however you want to. Natural fibers, linen, shout out if you have questions. I don't like to read pages to you because I know you can scan that yourself. Wish.com, had to put something in about that. Y'all, that is dangerous. Very dangerous place to order something from. I've ordered things from them before just to see what would happen. And it was almost all polyester plastic, which is not only doesn't breathe and can really make you warm, but also we are typically outdoors around fire, and polyester and other synthetic fibers have a tendency to melt and stick to you. That's not the best choice for our game. There's a lot of fire around and swords and everything else. So please stick to the natural fabrics as best you can. You will find that the costume, your first costume that you make, will stick with you forever. I made my first dress tunic. I got the same class 20 years ago, except that I ran out of fabric and had to put inserts into my skirt from another fabric source. Unfortunately, I made the fabric or the dress out of red cotton, and I made the gores, which are the inserts, out of red polyester. And after about 5 washings, I had a pink dress with red triangles all over it, and it was hilarious. Okay, all of the tunic things that I talked to you about vary by time period based on sleeve, how the sleeve is built, wide or narrow, the length of the tunic, your neck decoration, gentleman leg coverings of some sort, headwear, shoes, and jewelry. We have these things in our organization called sumptuary considerations. And what I did is I brought pictures of those onto this page. There are awards in our society, and a lot of them come with various colors of belts. So not a first choice for most people, but white belts are an indicator of knighthood. And you know, nothing's going, like the name thing, nothing's going to happen to you if you wear one.
I'm having trouble hearing you. I think something might be wrong.
Yeah, me too.
It's just, we're making you to be smart.
Cutting in and out,
I
love.
think your connection's a little unstable.
Go see if I can be of any help there real quick.
So while we are arranging or dealing with technical difficulties, does anyone have any questions thus far, or maybe anything that's possibly off topic for what we've talked about so far, since we have a little bit of extra time?
I have, excuse me, regarding shoes, there are a lot of different things that you can do about shoes. Are one of my, I've actually made shoes. So generally, you know, simpler is better. But if I know that I ran into somebody one time who had to wear one of those, you know, they had ankle surgery or something, where it's like, well, what do you do? Well, there's always ways you can kind of like fake it till you make it. You know, hot glue gun and some fabric or leather can get you by until you can get the real thing.
Absolutely. And to be clear, like, say you've had surgery and need a specific type of shoe, or you have you know, mobility issues and you need to have a walker or some other sort of support, no one's gonna ding you in the SCA because you have whatever support you need. Like, we're gonna look around it. It's the Middle Ages as it should have been. So whatever's gonna allow you to play our game with us, that's fine. If you want to put a hobby horse head on the front of your walker, we're also into that. We think it's hilarious. But do what you need to do to be able to participate. And then, you know.
If you wear glasses, wear glasses.
Yes.
I love what Hex Tilda did with her walker, because she had to have one for a while. She turned it into a chariot. It was amusing.
It's pretty great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Sorry I dropped out, guys. That was not cool. So I'm not sure where I dropped out. There are some summary laws. If you're thinking about doing something, ask. But I bet you guys read this while I was gone. Maybe, hopefully. Patterning. Everything that I've talked about is simple rectangles. I have put live links here. I'm hoping this can get out to you guys somehow and you can see
Hey, John, can you
the
screen
pattern.
share again?
Oh dear, you betcha. Give me just a sec. Man, the whole thing cut out, huh?
A little reset.
Working on it.
There we go. It's coming up now.
Yeah. Okay. Are y'all seeing that?
Yep, I see it.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. So sorry. Back on track. Fantastic. There we go. Basic tunics are all a bunch of rectangles sewn together. Kind of fun. Great first project. We have a Clothiers Guild. It's not your only source. Gold key. And just, you know, who are you talking to in the SCA? You know, if you're doing some fighting, you might want to talk to those guys about what they've got. But these are super simple patterns that work for everyone. And the Norse tunic is referenced as a female tunic. It works for guys as well. It's just easy to put together. Okay, can I just buy stuff? Sure, you know, if you've got the money. I went and hunted around on Amazon and I'm shocked that you can actually find tolerable stuff. Guys are easier than gals. These linen pants, I'm intrigued enough about those that I may order a pair of those to see how they look on Pendaran with the Viking stuff that we have, because they're 100% linen and they're looking pretty comfy. But yeah, you can buy stuff. You got to be careful though. Again, hook up with somebody who kind of knows their way around the costuming stuff. This female dress is a little more expensive, but again, that I could wear that dress for 20 years. You know, these clothes don't wear out like your regular clothes do. You'll have them for a long, long time. So, you know, they might be slightly more expensive than you're used to, but they will stick with you for a good long time. Here's a couple more that I found for ladies that I like the prices on. They're still kind of expensive, but again, they're built to last. They're going to be with you forever. And I know the pictures are white, but they come in lots of different colors and lots of different sizes. Shoes. I heard y'all talking about shoes when I got back in. So with anything as far as costuming in the SCI, I always recommend find an actual period picture or actual extant clothing and start with that picture and then riff off of that. You know, how close can you get? These are actual extant shoes. I mean, you have to kind of know what you're looking for before you go shopping at a Goodwill to see if you can find something that would be suitable to start out with. These are lots of different time periods, but these are actual shoes they dug up out of bogs.
Among your clothiers within the organization, do you have people that are doing footwear?
I actually know that there was a guy down in
Not that I know of here.
which is down in San Antonio, who just started taking orders for boots and turn shoes and various other kinds of period footwear. So maybe not immediately in the area, but there are people close by.
There's also a
And
lot of merchants you can find on Facebook in the SCA.
Then there's Amazon.
Yeah, depending upon what you're wanting to do. Like I said, I've made shoes. I may not make shoes for you, but I can at least, you know, she mentioned going to Goodwill and grabbing something. I can show you how to do surgery on shoes to like make it pass, you know, kind of the fake it till you make it. Or if you really want to make shoes, I know some basics I will share with you. I probably won't make stuff for you, but I can at least kind of get you started.
Also, not to encourage, you know, bad behavior, but I've been fighting rapier for 5-6 years altogether, and I'm still doing it in a Walmart black suede shoe. So, like, you can make it.
So there's a $25 shoe here that Walmart is selling that is so period for guys and gals for so many time periods. And then I started looking around and I got excited again. I was like, who knew? And this is from last week, you know, $25 for a pair of shoes. Oh my God. Okay. You know, that's not bad. Boots, yeah, again, this is all period. This shoe in the bottom right-hand corner for ladies, the color choices are stunning, and the rubber sole on that's going to last you a good long time in the society and support your foot. But if you notice, I also have a black tennis shoe over here. I put that over there because some people have foot issues, and a foot issue can be quite severe and get worse at some of the events that we're at. You can turn your ankle, there's lots of rocks. So I have had friends in the society who have worn a black tennis shoe because they had to. And, you know, it's just one of those things you have to look past. So if that's a problem, you know, it's what you want to avoid is the fluorescent green tennis shoe with the orange swoosh. Yeah, that's a little hard to look past, but you know, dark black, nobody notices.
If I may, you mentioned the black tennis shoe here. I want to show something. This is actually for a different project, not an SCA project, but this is for a Supergirl costume. But on the end, all I did, when you could do the same thing with that black tennis shoe, on the inside is just a little black flat that we glued the fabric onto. So you could take that black tennis shoe and you know, make it work.
Yeah, exactly. And these resources, I would have killed to be able to get shoes like this 10 years ago. Okay, so Amazon, I mentioned a few times. So here are some of the no's that we see a lot. And we can help you do better. We can help you talk to someone, and we can help you do better. Just
Okay, so
a random array of things that make me nervous. Yes.
So, and I'm anxious to start moving forward on this, but in our current environment, are the guilds actually meeting, or is it all sort of an online thing at this point in time, or what?
They are meeting. The Clothiers Guild just had a meeting this week, but it's harder.
So we're meeting virtually. So thus far, the meetings have been through the Discord page. So everyone gets onto a common link. And then I believe Drika, our Clothiers Guild leader, did a screen share of some period patterns and kind of talked through some of that. And then people were talking through some of their current projects. And then John and I had an off-topic conversation for a while.
Yeah.
But collectively, you're getting together, and the guilds themselves are going to be people who are actually producers or artisans or crafters, if you will, or as opposed to people that aren't.
Well, I have actually gone to a number of the Clothiers Guild meetings, and basically when we do meet in person, it's okay. What are you making today? Does anybody need any help? Drake is really good about it too. You know, what are you working on? You won't necessarily find vendors there. Okay, you're probably not going to find someone that you could go talk to and say, could you make this for me? But if you wanted to know how to make it, they can give you pointers. They can tell you how to do particular stitches, or maybe how to lay a pattern out, or there's a number of things that they'll definitely help you out with. Does that answer your question?
Well, my appeal is probably going to be directly to somebody to assist with the sewing. I mean, I can run a hem, and this is going to be a sidebar that we can take another time. I've done this kind of stuff for another interest that I've had, but I mean, my approach has been pretty simple, and I don't have the time to be able to commit to putting together a complete outfit. So my point is, if I've decided on a period and an approximate look, are there people within the guild that'd be willing to help me out and get the attire?
Yes.
If I can, maybe not. But here's another resource for you.
I will help.
I'm sorry?
I will help. Colfine and I love helping new people get their first garments together. So.
Yeah. But as far as finding a vendor or somebody who will sell you a completed or will make a garment for you or sell you a complete garment, something you might want to consider is if you have a particular time period that you know you want to do. You want to do 12th century Lithuanian. Chances are, if you Google, you'll find a 12th century living history Lithuanian group out there. And they probably have a list of vendors that or sutlers that you can go to and say, and they may even have stuff ready to wear. So or they have approved sutlers where you can go like, okay, if I order from them, there's a pretty good chance that it's going to match the time period that I want to do. So as far as, I'm sure there are local tailors. I don't know who they are, but you might be able to find some local tailors.
It's hard to find people to do commission work to just build it for you. It can be done, but usually there's a waiting list, and it's real busy. I'm commissioned for the summer. I'm making a German, and it's going to take my whole summer. I'm a high school teacher by trade, so I have a month and a half in the summer to do stuff like this. But answering questions, talking about, I want to do this time period to start with, and I want to buy this at Amazon. What do you think? Those kinds of things. There's lots of people who can help you with that. There are, all kinds of people who sell things. You have to watch out. And it's better to get somebody to recommend a place to you. There's a lot of places say they're medieval or Renaissance purveyors of fine goods, and all of a sudden you're getting a 100% polyester, shiny, slippery, very uncomfortable thing delivered to you that's 2 sizes too small. So it's, walk the path with a buddy is my best recommendation. I love to talk to people about clothes, by the way, and, help them kind of decide where they're going, because it goes hand in hand with the costume or the persona. What do you want to be? Who do you want to be? And then within that, do you want to be middle class or do you want to be noble? And just like back then, if you want to be noble, you got to have more money, because the clothes are going to be more expensive and the fabrics are going to be more expensive. Don't even get me started about jewelry. There's so much amazing jewelry out there right now too. Other questions? It's a very personal decision. Okay. I think we might be done unless there's other questions.
Awesome. Well, Jehann and Pendaran, can we give a round of applause for our awesome teachers? Thank you, guys. Yeah, there we go. This is online. Yeah. Well, I really, I applaud you guys. Thank you so much, because as you guys explained, you're coming back into the game, and it's great to be able to have you guys share your experience with our new people. So if you want folks that have any more questions of these come up and you want to connect with Jehann or Pendaran, you're welcome to contact the Newcomers Academy and we can put you in touch with them. Also on the event page, they are both hosts on the this event page for this class, so they can see your questions there as well. And Jehann just put down her email, and Pendaran did as well. So I definitely suggest, following up if you want to discuss these things more. Orazio, do you want to, because you are on the Discord server more and you guys have a lot of those types of conversations there, do you have the link for the Discord that you can share with people?
I do. It is actually already in the chat.
Oh,
So if
perfect.
you scroll up a little bit, I posted several different several different links. The first one is to the Kingdom Calendar. So this is the main Onstjorn page calendar list, and a lot of events are trying to switch to go virtual. So upcoming on June the 13th is what's called King's College, which is usually a class-based event anyways, and so they're moving that completely virtually. And so there's going to be a lot of different teachers teaching all kinds of different arts and sciences class, different service classes, different, and I think a couple martial classes talking about form and that kind of thing as well. So a lot of different opportunities there. But I just recommend keep your eye on the calendar. That's the best way to know what's going on in the kingdom. And then the next two are the Onstjorn, which is our kingdom, the Texas-Oklahoma region, and the Barony of Bryn Gwlad, which is our local Austin area group Facebook pages. And then the fourth one is our Bryn Gwlad website. And the fifth one, which is the one that I really want to focus on, is our Discord page. So Discord, for anyone who doesn't know, is kind of like Slack or any sort of other chat / text video forum page. And so if you go onto there, it's going to be a separate app you can either use through the web browser or on the app. But once you go into the Discord page, the page will ask you to please introduce yourself. So when you first get into our Discord, there's just basically a welcome, informational, and introductions tab. When you go into introductions and say, hey, I'm Orazio de CC, I've been playing in Bryn Gwlad for 3 years and I finally got on Discord. And then the admins will add you, and once they say, yep, you're supposed to be here, so that we can avoid bots getting into the group, it opens up with dozens of different text channels for all kinds of different martial activities and ANS activities and different just social chat rooms and Q&A rooms. So all sorts of information is on that page. I highly recommend you get on the Discord, and that's also where a lot of the guilds are currently having their meetings. So here's my plugs.
Awesome. You totally anticipated everything. I love it. Great. Well, okay. If there's no further questions at this time, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Again, our next meeting is going to be June 15th. It's a Monday, same time, same Zoom. Our teacher for that day is Master Renee. He is a Laurel, and he's going to be talking about arts and sciences. So if you are a crafty type person, or even if just an appreciator of the arts, and want to learn more, because there's the arts and sciences is kind of the heart of the SCA. You have your big loud fighting and that's kind of what draws people in, but it's really the arts and sciences that I believe keeps people here, besides the friends y'all make. So please join us on June 15th at 7 p.m. There is an event page on the Bryn Gwlad Facebook, and we'll be sharing that in the Newcomers Academy, so make sure you put in a reminder. Yes, Orazio.
One other thing to plug: tomorrow and basically every Tuesday we have what would usually be Populace in the Park. So tomorrow is Tuesday is our usual fighter practice night. But since we are currently not able to meet, we are meeting virtually on the Discord. So every Tuesday, people kind of get into the Discord chat room. It's a great time to just meet some people, ask some off-topic questions, whatever you want to talk about. That's the place. So on the Discord, 7:30 start until people disperse.
Is there any sense of when we're going to return to some aspects of the in-person stuff, or has that been discussed?
Well, at this time, officially coming down from Kingdom, there's still no in-person activities, and that's indefinite until they change it. It's actually really waiting on the state of Texas to pretty much loosen up the in-person gathering requirements. Now, they are hoping to
It seems
have.
to me if I wanted to protest, I'd be just fine. But for these, there are guidelines, right?
Yeah, we here in the SCA are required to follow mundane law before our own. So, the Seneschal of Bryn Gwlad is watching it very closely. They are hoping to have in-person events starting in July for Crown tournaments, and then also Queen's tournament for Queen's Champion, which you'll see on the Instagram calendar. Everyone is hoping. I know our rapier fighters are probably just chomping at the bit to get back on the field. So we're hoping by July.
Champion.
It's true. Otherwise, you have to keep going. Yeah, so I do know that all events for June have been canceled so far. And, if they do start allowing in-person things by July, we might try to go back to in-person Newcomers Academy, but we might still stream them on Facebook for folks that aren't able to join us in person. So cross your fingers for July. Awesome. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and we'll wrap this up. Please join us for Discord tomorrow and on June 15th. So thanks, everybody.
Everybody.
Thanks, folks.